All right, let's turn a little bit, if we may, to the politics of this. Not only Michael Gove, one of your closest friends, has come out on the other side, Boris Johnson, who's watching this interview, all the drumbeats are this endless dance of the seven veils, seems to be ending up with him going the Brexit side as well. The Conservative Party, right to the top, is deeply, deeply split on this now, isn't it?
Well, we had a very good, very civilised, very dignified cabinet meeting in which the 29 people who sit round the table, 23 absolutely believe that actually everyone agreed that the deal made in Brussels was a good deal. Everyone agreed on the referendum. And 23 of 29 agreed that Britain is better off in a reformed European Union. But of course, people like Michael and Ian Duncan Smith, all their political lives have believed, particularly Michael, that Britain would be better off outside the EU. So that's why we have this position in place, that people can campaign in a personal capacity. Obviously, I'm sad that a close friend is going to be on the different side of this argument, but we respect each other's positions, and we'll make the case accordingly. As for to Boris, I'd say to Boris,
probably watching.
To Boris, I would say
talk to him directly.
Well, I would say to Boris what I say to everybody else, which is that we will be safer, we'll be stronger, we'll be better off inside the EU. I think the prospect of linking arms with Nigel Farage and George Galloway and taking a leap into the dark is the wrong step for our country. And if Boris and if others really care about being able to get things done in our world, then the EU is one of the ways in which we get them done. We're members of NATO, we're members of the UN, we're members of the IMF. I care about Britain being able to fix stuff. Now, whether it's stopping pirates off the African coast, whether it's closing down illegal migration routes and closing down smugglers, whether it's standing up to Vladimir Putin with sanctions, whether it's the sanctions we put in place to get Iran to abandon its nuclear program, having that seat at the table in the EU, just as being a member of NATO, is a vital way that we project our values and our power and our influence in the world. And I don't say this for any exercise of national vanity. This is about our national interest, that Britain, this amazing country, 5th largest economy in the world, we can succeed whatever we do. But if you ask me, having sat here as Prime Minister for 6 years, how will we be safer, stronger, better off, in or out? I'm absolutely clear we'll be better off in, and I'm going to take that message around the country for the next 4 months. If the British people make a contrary decision, I will do everything in my power to implement it as best I can. But I'm absolutely clear, after the years that I've spent in this job, that this is the right thing for Britain to do.
You have bust a gut on this negotiation. You've tried very, very hard, and it's beginning to look as if behind you there is a very, very carefully coordinated campaign of Brexit people working against you. Do you feel in any sense betrayed? You've been out there and you feel knives in your back as you head back through the tunnel.
No, that's not at all, actually. The cabinet meeting yesterday was I say, very dignified, and everybody said, first of all, they backed the referendum, they backed the date. Everyone also said they thought the deal improved on the status quo, because it's undeniable we're going to be able to stop people's welfare benefits. It's undeniable that we're out of ever closer union. One of this crucial point of making sure not just we keep our currency, but British firms can never be discriminated against while there is this parallel currency, the euro. These are really important for the future of our country. But of course, in the Conservative Party, as in the Labour Party, and you heard it with Kate Hoey, you have some people who've always believed Britain's better off out. I think it is a risk. I think it's uncertainty. I think it's a leap in the dark, and I think it would actually weaken our ability to get things done, our sovereignty, as it were, rather than strengthen
it. And the choice is not very far away. If we do leave the EU, if Brexit happens, these are sort of dangerous times economically and in other ways as well. What do you think happens to the rest of the EU? Does it carry on unchanged?
Well, I think it would lose, obviously, one of its strongest players. It would lose the country that argues the most for free trade deals, that argues the most for a competitive single market. But it wouldn't go away. I think this, in a way, is one of the weaknesses of the case for leaving, is this idea. I think Patrick McLaughlin put it brilliantly at Cabinet yesterday. He said, in a way perhaps only he could, look, I'd love to live in utopia too, but I've got a feeling when we get to utopia we'll find the EU will still be there. And that's the point, because in the end this is a hard-headed calculation about what's best for Britain, for British people. How do we create jobs? How do we safeguard livelihoods? How do we fight terrorism? How do we make sure, in a very dangerous world, we're strong in the West and we have strength in numbers, in a world where you've got Putin to the east and ISIL, Daesh to the south? How do you stay strong? You stay strong by sticking with your neighbouring countries, your partners and your friends. Yes, this organisation is imperfect. Has it got better? Yes. Is there still a lot more to do to improve it? Absolutely. And the case for reform doesn't end. But if you leave the EU will stop reforming. In my view, it would probably get worse, and that actually would impact us very badly, because if we're outside the EU, the euro goes on as a currency with its problems. The migration crisis goes on.
Let me take you back to this unhappy prospect of Britain voting to leave the EU, and everything's on a knife edge. No one knows what's going to happen. Last time we spoke, I asked you whether you would stay on as Prime Minister, and you said, in effect, you bet. But if that happened, you would go down into history as the man who got Britain out of the EU against your own will. That would be a catastrophic thing to have on your CV.
I stood, and the whole Conservative Party stood on a very clear manifesto of a promise I made 3 years ago that we would have a renegotiation and hold a referendum, and we are meeting those commitments. The renegotiation is now complete after exhaustive work, travelling right across Europe, meeting every single Prime Minister and President, getting a better deal for Britain, and now we meet the commitment to hold this referendum. And the people are sovereign. We talk about sovereignty. Well, the people of our country are going to make a sovereign decision. They're going to instruct their Prime Minister either to stay in a reformed European Union and fight for Britain's interests in that way, or to leave. And I will, meet their instruction and answer their instruction, whatever it is. That's my job.
Michael Gove, Bojo, Zach Goldsmith, they're falling away one by one. Do you think you're losing this?
Not at all. I think, you've got the overwhelming majority of the cabinet backing that we're better off to remain in a reformed European Union. You're going to see, I'm sure some people try and paint it as the establishment against, the sort of rebel alliance. Well, you don't get much more establishment than the Lord Chancellor and the Leader of the House of Commons. And frankly, I've got many things to say about Jeremy Corbyn, but I don't think I'd describe him as a member of the establishment. I mean, on my side of the argument, there will be, the Green Party, the Liberal Democrats, most of the Labour Party, trade unionists who not always do I have a huge amount of...
You happy about this?
Yeah, because in the end, this question is so much bigger than any political party or any politician. It's about the future of our country, for our children and our grandchildren. What sort of country do we want to live in? I would say, let us have a big, bold Britain, doing great things in the world, in these organisations, making us stronger, more prosperous and safer.
Prime Minister, thank you very much indeed. That's all we've got time for this morning. Thanks to the Prime Minister and all my guests. On the Sunday Politics in an hour, Joe Coburn will be talking to the pro-Brexit Cabinet Minister Chris Grayling and the Shadow Foreign Secretary Hilary Benn. Join me again at the same time next week, but for now, a very good morning.
For waking us up.